Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a trip to the skies. Well, sort of. Imagine a time when the idea of flight was pure fantasy. No airplanes, no helicopters, no drones. Just humans looking up at the birds and wondering, what if we could do that? You're standing in an open field, gazing up at the clouds, wondering what it would be like to soar high above everything, as free as a bird. It seems impossible, doesn't it? You probably won't survive this journey, after all. People once believed flying was nothing more than a dream, and even if they did try it, many didn't make it very far. But tonight, we're diving into the story of the first recorded balloon ride, an adventure that transformed this very dream into reality. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you feel like it. Post your location and the local time. It's always cool to know where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Humanity has always dreamed of flight. From ancient myths like Icarus's ill-fated flight to the modern-day wonder of airplanes. The skies have called to us. But before the modern technologies we take for granted, the idea of flying was more than just fantasy. It was a curiosity, a challenge, a pursuit of something almost magical. Picture the scene. It's the 18th century, and people are constantly looking for new ways to explore the world around them. Scientists and inventors are pushing boundaries, trying to make sense of the universe and solve its mysteries. In many ways, the 1700s were a time when the world felt on the verge of incredible discoveries. Electricity was being tamed. The steam engine was getting its start. And the human desire to conquer the air was just beginning to take shape. At this point, balloons weren't even an idea. They were just a distant, impossible thought. But the dream of flight was very much alive. While the idea of flight had been bouncing around for centuries, the breakthrough that would change everything came from two unlikely figures in France, Joseph Michel and Jacques-Étienne Montgolfier. The Montgolfier brothers were far from being the only inventors dreaming up ways to take to the air. But they were the ones who would make it happen in a way that the world could actually see. At first glance, the idea of flight seems like an obvious one. After all, we've all seen smoke rise from a fire. But this simple observation would lead to one of the most groundbreaking inventions of the century. And no, it wasn't some overly complicated engine or a machine designed by hundreds of brilliant minds. Instead, it was something that looked, well, a bit more like a big floating sack. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Montgolfier brothers, both from a wealthy family of paper manufacturers, had spent years thinking about how hot air could lift objects. The idea came to them one day while watching a fire. They noticed that smoke rises. But what if it could rise in such a way that it could carry something with it? This simple observation led to the development of a hot air balloon, an idea they could test right away. The moment their balloon idea began to take shape, the brothers worked tirelessly. They carefully constructed a balloon large enough to hold a significant amount of hot air, with a method for releasing it in a controlled way. They used a huge fabric bag, open at the bottom, that would trap the hot air generated by a fire at its base. By controlling the heat and allowing the air to rise, they created the first prototype of what would become a hot air balloon. By June of 1782, their first test flight had been conducted. Albeit with no human passengers, they sent up a simple unmanned balloon. And To everyone's surprise, it floated successfully, hovering just above the ground. The brothers had proven that hot air could indeed lift objects into the sky. But that was just the beginning. What came next would change everything. Historians still argue about the exact impact of the first flight. But one thing is clear. The Montgolfier brothers' invention sparked a wave of interest across Europe, with many eagerly watching the brothers' next steps. Would they truly succeed in making the first human flight? Would their little air balloon make it off the ground and into the clouds? There were many questions to answer, and the world was waiting for their next move. The Montgolfier brothers had taken their first steps into uncharted territory. But now, they had to face the most significant question of all. Could a human actually fly in one of these massive balloons? The brothers were faced with a daunting challenge. They knew that their invention worked in principle, but the leap from sending an inanimate object into the sky to actually sending a person up there was an entirely different matter. Could they actually send someone up safely? Could a human withstand the intense heat and potentially perilous altitude? It's almost like the first astronauts staring up at the stars and wondering if they'd survive the journey. The task ahead was monumental. The brothers had their invention, but now they needed to prove it to the world. They began making refinements to their design. The early balloons were nothing like the modern, sleek creations we imagine today. These first balloons were enormous, made of linen or silk, and often covered in a coating of varnish to help keep the air inside. The flames that heated the air weren't controlled by the sophisticated systems we think of today. They were just open fires that could quickly spiral out of control. Yet, somehow, the brothers pushed forward, testing their designs with increasing ambition. Historians still debate how much of the work was truly collaborative between the two brothers. Joseph Michel, the elder, seems to have been the visionary behind the design and concept, while Jacques Etienne, the younger, took the lead on building and refining the actual balloons. Either way, their efforts were about to take flight in a way no one could have predicted. But they still had a long way to go before their dream of human flight would come true. By September 1783, they had enough confidence in their balloon's design to attempt something far bolder than a simple unmanned flight. It was time to send a living being into the sky. But who would go first? The answer came, not surprisingly, from the world of science. The Montgolfiers were keen on proving that their invention was not just a curiosity. It was a genuine step toward understanding the mysteries of the sky. So, rather than taking the leap themselves, they enlisted the help of a scientist to take the first ride. Enter Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier, a school teacher and physicist who had shown deep interest in the new ballooning technology. Pilatre de Rosier wasn't just someone looking for a thrill. He was a man of reason. And he saw the potential of this experiment to answer questions about the atmosphere, air pressure, and even the nature of flight itself. Pilatre de Rosier was the perfect candidate for this inaugural flight. Not only was he highly educated, but he had also been the first person to suggest the possibility of human flight via a balloon. He had eagerly followed the Montgolfiers' progress, and when the brothers needed a volunteer, he stepped up without hesitation. It wasn't a small request. Flying in an untested balloon in the late 1700s was like volunteering for a journey to the moon today. There were many risks, but Pilatre de Rosier had the resolve of someone committed to scientific progress. So he agreed to be the first person to board a Montgolfier balloon. But there was one problem. They had no clear idea what would happen. Would the fire beneath the balloon burn out of control, causing the balloon to crash? Would Pilatre de Rosier be able to control his descent? Or would he simply float away into the sky, never to return? The first flight was a gamble, and everyone involved knew it. In fact, the Montgolfiers were so concerned about the danger that they insisted the first flight be unmanned. Until Pilatre de Rosier, with characteristic determination, demanded to take part. Finally, in October 1783, the moment arrived. Pilatre de Rosier climbed into the Montgolfiers' grand creation, a large balloon made of silk and linen, with the fire burning below. As the balloon filled with hot air, he slowly began to rise, but not just a few feet. This was a flight that would take him hundreds of feet into the air. As he rose higher and higher, the crowd below grew more anxious. What would happen next? It was a success. For a brief, thrilling moment, Pilatre de Rosier was airborne. His journey was far from smooth. There were gusts of wind, unpredictable movements in the balloon, and moments of real panic as the altitude increased. But despite the unpredictability, he returned safely to the ground. He had just made history for all the risks. The excitement of the moment was undeniable. The first recorded manned flight had succeeded, proving that human beings could fly, not with wings, but by harnessing the power of hot air. The reaction from the crowd was one of amazement. The idea that a person could rise above the earth in such a manner seemed like a fantasy come true. Historians often remark that the flight sparked an instant fascination with ballooning, a fascination that would quickly spread throughout Europe and beyond. Yet, there was still so much to be learned. While the flight had been a success, the world had yet to fully understand the potential of these balloons. Pilatre de Rosier's journey was a small step for one man, but it was a giant leap for humankind's understanding of flight. Historians still argue about the true significance of the flight. Was it a scientific breakthrough, or was it just a spectacle? Some believe it was the first step in understanding how to fly, while others think it was simply the beginning of a long series of experiments that would eventually lead to the development of airplanes, regardless of where one stands. It's clear that the first balloon flight changed the course of history, and the world would never look at the sky the same way again. The first human flight was an undeniable triumph, but the journey didn't end there, now that a person had soared above the earth. The question was, what next? The excitement surrounding the Montgolfier brothers' balloon was palpable. The world had witnessed an experiment that seemed so simple, yet so profound. People were captivated by the idea of traveling through the air, and the balloon soon became the subject of fascination across Europe. But as much as the success of the flight was celebrated, there were also inevitable questions about how to refine the process. How could they make the balloon more reliable? Could they control its movements better? And perhaps most importantly, could they make the flight last longer, reach greater heights, or even carry passengers? The Montgolfier brothers' invention was a marvelous first step, but it was far from perfect. The first successful flight, though thrilling, was plagued by unpredictability. The balloon's flight path was at the mercy of the wind. This lack of control made subsequent flights a bit more terrifying than one might imagine. In a world where the idea of controlled flight still felt like science fiction, balloonists had no manual or guidelines for managing air currents or altitude. It was all trial and error. Historians still argue whether the Montgolfier brothers were truly the first to master flight. While their invention of the hot air balloon was a monumental achievement, There were those who had been experimenting with flight in other ways. One of the most famous figures who came into play at this point was the brilliant and eccentric Jean-Pierre Blanchard. Blanchard, a Frenchman who had spent years developing his own ballooning techniques, was determined to push the limits of what the Montgolfiers had done. He was particularly focused on creating a balloon that could be steered, something that seemed like an impossible feat given the nature of hot air balloons. Blanchard's innovations came at a critical time. Although the Montgolfiers had pioneered ballooning, they had never quite mastered the art of navigation. Their balloon was at the mercy of the wind, and while it could take flight, there was no way of determining where it would land or if it would land at all. Blanchard, however, sought to change this. His idea was simple. Instead of relying solely on hot air, he would use gas, specifically hydrogen. The gas, being lighter than air, would allow the balloon to rise higher and, in theory, give the operator more control over the flight. By 1784, Blanchard made his first successful flight with a gas-powered balloon. His success was groundbreaking, but it wasn't without its flaws. The balloon's ability to rise higher was a definite advantage, but it still didn't offer complete control, even with the gas balloon. There was no guarantee of a smooth ride. Blanchard's balloon didn't just ascend, it darted and swayed in the air, controlled only by the whims of the weather. The issue of navigation remained a challenge. As exciting as the potential of gas balloons was, it was clear that ballooning still had a long way to go before it could be considered a reliable form of transportation or even exploration. But despite these issues, Blanchard's flight proved that balloons could rise higher and faster than anyone had imagined. And the innovation sparked interest from a wide range of people, from curious spectators to the military, who saw potential in balloons for reconnaissance and communication. Interestingly, as more balloon flights took place, it became clear that they weren't just spectacles for the general public. Military applications began to emerge, as nations realized the potential of using these floating giants for spying on the enemy. France, in particular, saw the balloon's usefulness in warfare. In 1794, during the French Revolution, the French military used a balloon to help them spot enemy troops and relay information. This marked a pivotal shift. What had started as a tool for scientific curiosity was now becoming a tool of war. But before we get too far ahead, let's take a moment to think about the people who braved the skies in these early balloons. Jean-Pierre Blanchard wasn't the only daring adventurer to take to the air. In fact, many brave souls volunteered for early flights, knowing full well that ballooning was a dangerous activity. The balloons weren't equipped with safety measures or emergency protocols, and the risks of fire, sudden altitude changes, or landing in an unpredictable location were very real. There's something almost romantic about those first balloonists. They weren't just scientists. They were adventurers, explorers, and daredevils who were willing to take risks for the sake of discovery. They knew there were no guarantees. Pilatre de Rosier, who had been the first person to ride in a balloon, didn't exactly sign up for a smooth ride. Instead, he had entered into a world where the rules of flight were still being written, and it was anyone's guess how things might turn out. Historians still debate whether the ballooning craze was more about the thrill of discovery or the desire for human domination of the skies. Some argue that it was a mixture of both. The idea of humans defying gravity was tantalizing, and every successful flight brought the promise of new possibilities. At the same time, the thrill of flying itself was undeniable. In an era where transportation was limited to horses and ships, The idea of soaring above the earth, just like the birds, was exhilarating. It was a dream come true, albeit one fraught with danger. As the ballooning movement gained momentum, a new class of balloonists began to emerge. These were individuals who weren't just engineers or scientists, but entertainers. Ballooning became a spectacle, and people lined up to see these enormous, bizarre machines take to the air. Public demonstrations were held, where people marveled at the sight of these strange contraptions floating into the sky. Balloonists became the rock stars of their time, and their performances captured the imagination of the public. But it wasn't just about flying anymore. Ballooning had become a form of entertainment, something that drew crowds and generated excitement. The success of early flights had shown the potential of ballooning. But it had also made it clear that there was an enormous appetite for the strange and wondrous spectacle of humans floating in the sky. In the end, it wasn't just the technology of ballooning that captivated the world. It was the sense of adventure and wonder that came with it. The Montgolfier brothers had sparked the fire, but the story of ballooning was far from over. There were still many flights to come, many innovations to be made, and many brave souls to take the leap. The fascination with ballooning didn't just stop at science and military use. It quickly became a spectacle, a kind of entertainment that captured the imaginations of both the curious and the adventurous. The very idea of soaring above the earth, even for a brief moment, was so extraordinary that public demonstrations began to draw large crowds. It was like the 18th century equivalent of a rock concert or a blockbuster movie premiere. The public's fascination with ballooning wasn't just about the science behind it. It was about the thrill, the spectacle, and the possibility of something new and bold. As the Montgolfier brothers' invention began to make waves, the world's attention shifted to a new generation of balloonists. In fact, ballooning soon became a form of public entertainment. But instead of being just about discovery, it evolved into a performance. Balloonists became celebrities in their own right, performing daring feats and pushing the boundaries of human flight. Some of these early pioneers even began to take passengers, offering them the chance to experience flight for themselves. The concept of air travel was no longer just for scientists. It was for anyone with the desire and the courage to take part. Among the first to capitalize on this newfound popularity was the famous balloonist Jean-Pierre Blanchard, who had been experimenting with balloons since the early days of flight. Blanchard, with his gas-filled balloons and daring personality, was one of the first to truly turn ballooning into a public event. In fact, Blanchard's flights were often staged as performances for paying audiences. People gathered from all over to see these magnificent machines take to the sky, and they would cheer as the balloon ascended into the clouds. There was a sense of wonder and excitement. Ballooning had become more than just science. It was a kind of theater, a performance of human ingenuity. Blanchard didn't just stop at public flights. He performed one of the most daring feats of his career in 1785 when he flew across the English Channel from France to England in his balloon. It was a journey of over 20 miles, and it took several hours. It wasn't just a technical achievement. It was a public relations triumph that cemented Blanchard as one of the most famous balloonists of his time. The English Channel flight was a milestone, an audacious and successful attempt at long-distance flight that no one had ever thought possible before. Meanwhile, ballooning was gaining traction across Europe. The craze was in full swing. Every major city seemed to be hosting its own ballooning events, with spectators eagerly watching the ascent of the massive, colorful balloons. The fascination with flight spread like wildfire. People marveled at the idea that something so large and cumbersome could rise into the sky with just the power of hot air or gas. It seemed like magic, and, in many ways, it was. The idea of floating through the sky was, at that point, beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Historians still argue whether ballooning was truly a passing craze or whether it laid the groundwork for the more serious advances in aviation that followed. On one hand, the spectacle of ballooning undoubtedly captured public attention. But on the other hand, its popularity was tempered by the inherent dangers. Balloons were unpredictable, and the risk of accidents was always looming. The early balloonists didn't have the luxury of modern navigation systems, and the wind often dictated the course of their flights. As the world watched, balloonists faced an array of challenges that tested their skill, their courage, and their willingness to confront the unknown. But while the public was entertained, balloonists were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They weren't just looking to entertain. They were looking to understand, to explore, and to conquer the skies. Early ballooning provided a unique opportunity for scientists to test theories about air pressure, atmospheric conditions, and even the possibility of higher altitude flight. The first experiments with ballooning were not just about soaring for the sake of spectacle. They were about pushing the limits of human knowledge. One of the more fascinating developments during this period was the use of ballooning for scientific purposes. As scientists took to the air, they began to gather data about the atmosphere in ways that had never been possible before. The first high-altitude experiments involved sending up instruments and animals in balloons to study how the atmosphere changed with altitude. In one notable flight, in 1784, the French scientist Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier sent a dog and a sheep up in his balloon to see how animals reacted to high altitudes. The animals survived the flight, but it was clear that the balloon's limits were still not fully understood. Pilatre de Rosier, who had been the first person to take a human flight, was at the forefront of these early scientific experiments. His work paved the way for future balloon-based research, although he would soon face his own tragic fate. In 1785, Pilatre de Rosier met an untimely end during an ill-fated flight. He had teamed up with another balloonist, François Laurent d'Arlandes, to test a new design, a hybrid balloon that combined both hot air and hydrogen. The flight began well enough, but tragically. A combination of poor weather conditions and an unstable balloon led to a disaster. Pilatre de Rosier and d'Arlandes died when their balloon exploded mid-flight. Their deaths marked a somber turning point in the history of ballooning. The dangers were real, and the risks of flight were undeniable. Still, their deaths didn't deter the advancement of ballooning, which continued to evolve in the hands of brave and determined men and women. As we continue to move through the 18th century, the ballooning craze seemed unstoppable. Despite the dangers, there was something undeniably captivating about the idea of soaring through the air. And the technology continued to improve. Newer and more reliable designs were being developed, and more balloonists were taking to the skies, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. But it wasn't just about reaching greater heights. It was about conquering the fear of the unknown. Each balloon that ascended into the sky was another small victory for human ingenuity, even if the dangers were always present. At the same time, ballooning was beginning to lose some of its novelty. What had once been a groundbreaking achievement was quickly becoming a common occurrence. What had begun as a scientific breakthrough and a military application soon evolved into a widespread public fascination. Ballooning was no longer a one-off event. It was now part of everyday life, a symbol of human progress and exploration. And with that, the stage was set for even greater achievements. In the years that followed, ballooning would become more than just an entertaining pastime. It would lay the groundwork for future advancements in flight, eventually leading to the creation of airplanes and, eventually, the ability to explore the heavens themselves. As the ballooning craze spread like wildfire across Europe, it soon became evident that the skies were no longer the sole domain of scientists, explorers, and military strategists. With each passing flight, balloons grew more than just a tool of science or war. They became a symbol of human daring and ingenuity. The Montgolfier brothers' invention had transcended the realm of pure experimentation and morphed into a form of entertainment that captivated the masses. Ballooning was no longer just a demonstration of scientific progress, but an experience that anyone, regardless of background, could now witness. But as with all trends, the public's initial enthusiasm was followed by the inevitable question, what next after all? Once something is no longer a groundbreaking scientific achievement, but rather a form of public amusement, it risks losing some of its mystique. The novelty of ballooning began to wear off, and balloonists were faced with a challenge. How could they keep the public's attention and interest in a way that was both exciting and new? The answer, as it turned out, was simple yet dangerous: push the limits. As ballooning became more mainstream, its pioneers weren't satisfied with merely sending balloons up for short flights or public spectacles. Instead, they sought to challenge themselves and the public by flying higher, traveling farther, and most daringly, attempting to make the first transcontinental balloon journey. This was no small feat. As every balloonist who took to the air knew, a balloon's course was dictated entirely by the wind. The idea of controlling a balloon's path was still a distant dream. One of the most thrilling flights of this period came from the daring balloonist Jean-Pierre Blanchard, whose numerous adventures had made him a household name. In 1785, Blanchard achieved what many believed to be impossible: a flight across the English Channel. He wasn't the first to attempt it, but his journey proved that long-distance balloon travel was possible. Blanchard's flight was nothing short of audacious, and it captivated Europe. The flight was risky. He was navigating a new kind of balloon design, one that mixed hot air and hydrogen, and it was fraught with challenges. But despite the potential for disaster, Blanchard's flight across the Channel cemented his place in history. It wasn't just about the flight itself. It was about the idea that human beings could now travel distances that were previously unimaginable. The success of his flight sparked a wave of similar ambitious attempts, as balloonists raced to outdo each other in terms of altitude, distance, and daring. While Blanchard's transcontinental journey was an awe-inspiring moment in the history of ballooning, it also showcased the darker side of the rapidly growing industry. Balloonists, despite their pioneering spirit, still faced the ever-present threat of tragedy. The risks were not to be underestimated. In fact, ballooning was still a deadly pursuit, and there were more than a few instances where flights ended in disaster. Whether it was a balloon catching fire, the gas leaking out unexpectedly, or a malfunction in the parachute system, the early pioneers of ballooning were not only pushing the limits of human endurance, but also gambling with their lives. In the case of Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier, the tragic end came in 1785, just a few months after Blanchard's successful Channel flight. Pilatre de Rosier had been instrumental in ballooning's early days, but his life was tragically cut short when he perished during an ill-fated flight with a fellow balloonist. François-Laurent Darland. Pilatre de Rosier's balloon, which was a hybrid design that combined hydrogen and hot air, was not designed for the unpredictable winds and volatile conditions that the two balloonists encountered. The balloon exploded mid-flight, killing both men. Their deaths were a sobering reminder of the risks involved in ballooning. Yet they did little to deter future pioneers. If anything, they made ballooning even more tantalizing to the next generation of adventurers. Despite the risks, ballooning continued to evolve. In the aftermath of Pilatre de Rosier's death, balloonists began experimenting with new designs and safety measures. Many of these experiments were driven by the realization that ballooning, as thrilling as it was, needed to become more controlled and predictable if it was to truly take hold as a viable form of transportation or exploration. The desire to improve the safety and reliability of ballooning led to innovations in materials and technology. Balloonists began to experiment with stronger fabrics for the balloon envelopes, better methods for controlling the flames used to heat the air, and even the addition of parachutes as safety measures for when things went wrong. But even with these advancements, the unpredictability of ballooning remained. Historians still argue whether ballooning was truly a scientific breakthrough or if it was merely an entertaining craze. Some say that it was a precursor to the modern-day airplane, while others argue that it was more of a public spectacle than a serious attempt at flight. Regardless, it's undeniable that the early ballooning experiments had a profound impact on aviation history. The daring feats of balloonists inspired future generations of inventors and pioneers to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. Ballooning proved that humans could venture into the sky, even if only for a short time, and it set the stage for more ambitious and ultimately safer forms of flight. As ballooning advanced, it became more than just a spectacle or a science experiment. It transformed into a symbol of human curiosity and the desire to conquer the unknown. The early balloonists, with their willingness to face danger head-on, opened the door for the aviation pioneers who would follow in their footsteps. Their innovations, failures, and successes laid the foundation for the great advances in flight that would come in the 19th and 20th centuries. And while ballooning eventually lost its place as the cutting-edge form of transportation, it had a lasting legacy. The technology and the spirit of adventure that fueled those early flights would go on to inspire the Wright brothers, Amelia Earhart, and countless others who dared to dream of flying higher and farther. And today, when we see a hot air balloon drifting lazily through the sky, we're reminded of the brave souls who first took to the air, armed only with a vision and a dream. As ballooning transitioned from a daring experiment to a cultural phenomenon, the focus began to shift. No longer was ballooning simply about scientific exploration or military advantage. It was also about personal achievement and public fascination. Those who had pioneered the technology in the 18th century, like the Montgolfier brothers and Jean-Pierre Blanchard, had opened the door to something far greater, a widespread obsession with flight. However, as with most trends, ballooning's charm began to settle into a new phase, where it was no longer viewed solely as a technological breakthrough, but rather as a symbol of the era's adventurous spirit. The late 18th and early 19th centuries saw a dramatic rise in the popularity of ballooning as a sport and public spectacle. It became almost a performance art, as balloonists sought to entertain and impress the masses. Events were organized specifically for the purpose of showcasing ballooning's potential. But they also became social occasions. Crowds gathered in fields, parks, and open spaces, waiting with bated breath for the moment when a balloon would take flight. The spectacle of these large, colorful balloons lifting off the ground never failed to thrill spectators, and ballooning exhibitions became a regular occurrence. However, as the years went by, the appeal of ballooning also began to change. Once the excitement of seeing the first human flight wore off, the thrill of witnessing another man or woman simply float into the sky began to lose its novelty. It was no longer the mind-blowing achievement that it had once been. It was just another event, like a circus or a fireworks show, in some ways. Ballooning had become a form of entertainment, an experience more akin to a modern-day air show than a scientific breakthrough. But that wasn't to say that it wasn't still a captivating spectacle. The potential for danger, the unpredictability of the flight path, and the sheer awe of seeing something so large rise into the air kept people intrigued. After all, the possibility of something going wrong only added to the excitement. But despite ballooning's growing popularity as a form of public entertainment, its true significance lay not in its ability to thrill crowds, but in its long-term impact on aviation. The foundations laid by the Montgolfier brothers, Pilatre de Rosier, Blanchard, and their peers were the first stepping stones to what would eventually become the world of airplanes and modern aviation. The advances in understanding air pressure, the use of gas-filled balloons, and the early experiments with altitude all paved the way for the more controlled flight technologies that would follow. One of the most significant developments during this period was the increasing recognition that ballooning was, in fact, a useful tool for scientific exploration. While the idea of ballooning as a public spectacle remained, there was a growing realization that the technology could be harnessed for more serious purposes, as balloons began to rise to greater altitudes. Scientists saw an opportunity to gather data about the atmosphere. The early balloon flights made it possible for people to venture into the upper reaches of the atmosphere, allowing them to study the composition of the air and learn more about the different layers of the atmosphere. In the 19th century, the balloon became one of the primary tools for atmospheric research. Scientists were eager to understand the effects of high altitudes on the human body, to test theories about air pressure, and to explore the limits of the atmosphere. In 1862, for example, the American physicist John Wise made an important balloon journey to study the weather patterns in the upper atmosphere. Wise, one of the most well-known balloonists of his time, was fascinated by the idea of using balloons to gather information about the air currents at different elevations. The advancements made during this period laid the groundwork for future scientific missions. By the time the 20th century rolled around, ballooning would no longer be a form of entertainment or a show of human daring. It would become a scientific instrument, used in the study of meteorology, physics, and even space exploration. Early ballooning pioneers, like those who had pushed the boundaries of flight in the 18th century, had unwittingly opened the door to the future of human exploration. At the same time, ballooning had a lasting impact on military technology. Early on, balloonists had recognized the potential for aerial reconnaissance. The ability to view the world from above offered a strategic advantage in both warfare and exploration. In fact, balloons played a role in the American Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War, where they were used to observe troop movements and gather intelligence. But ballooning's military importance didn't end there. The ability to ascend into the air was eventually applied to the development of aircraft that would one day take humans to greater heights and even into outer space. But even though ballooning gradually became overshadowed by the advent of airplanes and other forms of controlled flight, the spirit of exploration and adventure that ballooning embodied never truly went away. The early balloonists had set a precedent for those who came after them. They had shown that human beings were capable of more than just walking on the ground. They were capable of flying, of venturing into the unknown, and of making the impossible a reality. As the 19th century wore on, other methods of flight began to take precedence. The Wright brothers, of course, are credited with inventing the first successful airplane in 1903. But ballooning remained an essential part of the broader history of flight. It served as the foundation upon which modern aviation was built. And its legacy lives on in the form of modern hot air ballooning, which continues to captivate people worldwide. Today, when you see a hot air balloon floating peacefully across the sky, it's a reminder of the brave individuals who once risked everything to achieve what seemed impossible. In the years since those early flights, ballooning has evolved. While it no longer holds the same awe and intrigue it once did as a scientific and military breakthrough, it has become a beloved pastime. Balloon festivals are held all over the world, where balloonists gather to showcase their colorful creations and delight crowds with their graceful ascents. The sense of adventure that ballooning once embodied has not been lost. Instead, it is transformed into a celebration of human curiosity and the spirit of exploration. People still look up in wonder when they see a balloon soaring through the sky. And it's easy to see why. Ballooning's legacy, however, is far more than just the sport it is today. It's a reminder of the human spirit's ability to dream big, to face danger with courage, and to push boundaries. The early balloon flights may have been filled with uncertainty and peril, but they paved the way for the incredible advances in flight that followed. The pioneers who first took to the skies, often without fully knowing what they were getting into, left behind a lasting mark on history. They proved that flight was no longer just a fantasy. It was a possibility. And from that first recorded balloon ride, the skies have never been the same. The transition from ballooning as a scientific curiosity and daring adventure to its role as a recreational activity was inevitable. But that didn't diminish the importance of the early balloonists. In fact, it's easy to overlook how profound their impact was on the world. The pioneers who ventured into the skies at the dawn of ballooning laid the groundwork for everything that would come after, whether it was military aviation, commercial air travel, or the space exploration that we take for granted today. The legacy of those first balloon flights reverberates through the history of human progress. But before we jump ahead too far, let's pause for a moment to reflect on the human experience behind ballooning. The journey to mastering flight wasn't just about the technicalities of building balloons. It was about overcoming the very human desire to conquer the unknown. For centuries, humans looked up at the sky and longed to join the birds, to rise above the ground and experience the world from a completely different perspective. Balloons, despite their many flaws and dangers, made that possible. It's easy to dismiss the early balloonists as naive or reckless, but they were pioneers in the truest sense. They didn't have the benefit of modern technology or years of knowledge about aerodynamics. What they had was sheer courage and curiosity, traits that drove them to take risks that most of us today would hesitate to even consider. The Montgolfier brothers, Blanchard, Pilatre de Rosier, and many others who followed them, put themselves in harm's way because they were motivated by something larger than themselves. They were motivated by the idea of flight, a dream that would eventually shape the future of human civilization. Ballooning, in its earliest days, was a paradox. On one hand, it was incredibly dangerous. Almost all early flights were marked by uncertainty. unpredictable weather, and the ever-present risk of catastrophe. On the other hand, ballooning was an adventure that attracted people from all walks of life, from daring scientists to common citizens who just wanted to experience the thrill of flight. And despite the many deaths, accidents, and failures, ballooning held the promise of something amazing: freedom. The freedom to defy gravity, to float above the earth, and to see the world from a perspective that had been previously unattainable. That is a powerful idea, one that continues to capture the imagination of people all over the world. Even as ballooning became more commonplace, there remained an inherent sense of adventure in each flight. Balloonists still faced the same challenges as their predecessors: unpredictable weather, lack of control, and the constant threat of disaster. But by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ballooning had become far more than just an experimental activity. It was a sport, an event, and an entertainment that drew crowds to balloon festivals across Europe and America. The sense of spectacle, the bright colors of the balloons, and the thrill of seeing something so massive floating gracefully in the sky continued to captivate the public. However, as airplanes began to take over the skies, ballooning's place in the world of transportation began to wane. It was a natural progression. The rapid advancements in aviation technology during the early 20th century offered a far more reliable, controlled, and practical method of flight. Airplanes could fly faster, higher, and more safely than any balloon could. And so, balloons, once the cutting edge of flight, became relegated to a more leisurely pursuit, even though the practical applications of ballooning were overtaken by airplanes. It didn't disappear. Instead, it found a place in the hearts of those who loved the romance and serenity of hot air balloon rides. By the 20th century, ballooning had become a hobby, a way for people to experience the thrill of flight in a much gentler and safer manner. Hot air balloon rides became an iconic experience for those seeking a peaceful, scenic view of the world. Ballooning now had an entirely different role. Instead of pushing the boundaries of human flight, it was offering a way to gently drift over landscapes, taking in the beauty of the earth from above. And that brings us to the legacy of ballooning today. Every year, cities around the world hold balloon festivals, where people gather to watch massive balloons inflate and ascend into the sky. These festivals are a testament to the enduring fascination with flight. People still marvel at the sight of colorful balloons drifting gracefully above them, just as they did centuries ago when the first balloons took to the skies. The technology may have changed, and the risks may have diminished, but the sense of wonder and the spirit of adventure that ballooning represents remain the same. While airplanes and spacecraft have become the primary means of travel and exploration, ballooning continues to capture a certain nostalgia, a sense of yearning for the early days of flight. Hot air balloons are no longer used for scientific experiments or military reconnaissance, but they serve as a reminder of the humble beginnings of aviation. They remind us of a time when flight was a dream, a wonder, and a mystery before it became a routine mode of transportation. Moreover, ballooning still serves as a valuable tool in the field of scientific research. Today, balloons are used for atmospheric research, particularly in the study of climate change and weather patterns. These modern balloons are far more sophisticated than the early models and carry sophisticated instruments that allow scientists to gather data from the upper atmosphere. They are often launched into the stratosphere to measure everything from ozone levels to cosmic radiation, providing valuable insights into our planet's atmosphere. Ballooning, in all its forms, has come a long way since those early days in the 18th century. From the first daring flights by the Montgolfier brothers and Jean-Pierre Blanchard to the modern-day balloon festivals and scientific missions. It has had a profound impact on human history. It's a story of curiosity, courage, and adventure, a story that continues to inspire people around the world. But the true beauty of ballooning lies in its ability to remind us of our deep-rooted desire to explore, to conquer the unknown, and to dream of flying. It's a journey that began centuries ago, and while it may not be as groundbreaking as the advent of airplanes or space travel, it is still a journey worth taking, one that connects us to the very essence of human exploration. The skies may be crowded with airplanes and spacecraft now, but when you see a hot air balloon floating peacefully in the distance, it's a reminder of those brave souls who first dared to rise above the earth, just to see what was possible. As the years passed and technology advanced, the world of aviation evolved rapidly. Airplanes became the symbol of modern travel, and balloons, while still beloved for their charm and tranquility, were relegated to a much smaller role in the larger narrative of flight. Yet, even as the engines of airplanes roared and rockets soared into space, balloons held their ground in one significant area, as a link between humanity's past aspirations for flight and our ongoing journey into the skies. The 20th century brought us many innovations in the world of aviation. From the Wright brothers' first successful flight in 1903 to the supersonic speeds of Concorde and beyond. However, ballooning has never quite left the public consciousness. Its allure as the gentler form of flight, a kind of timeless adventure, still lingers in the hearts of those who seek an escape from the bustle of daily life. When you look up at a balloon floating serenely in the sky, you're reminded of a time when flight was not as predictable as it is now, when the unknowns were daunting, yet exhilarating. Perhaps that's what makes ballooning so appealing to us, even in today's high-tech world. We live in an era of airplanes, satellites, and space stations. But there's something inherently romantic about seeing a colorful balloon rising gently with the wind. It evokes nostalgia for a time when flight was new, when the sky was still a mystery to be explored. There's no engine roaring or jet streaking across the sky. The balloon simply drifts, powered by the breeze, moving wherever the wind chooses to carry it. It's a reminder that not all forms of flight need to be fast, efficient, or even fully under control. Sometimes it's enough to just go where the air takes you. And ballooning continues to captivate people across the globe, not just in the form of modern recreational rides, but also through festivals and competitions. Balloon festivals, such as the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta in New Mexico, have become some of the largest gatherings of balloonists in the world. These events draw spectators from all over, eager to witness the spectacle of hundreds of balloons lifting off into the sky at dawn, their bright colors filling the horizon. It's a visual reminder of the simplicity and joy that ballooning can bring. But ballooning also serves as a way for people to connect to a history much larger than any one flight. It's a living link to the pioneers who first took to the skies. From the Montgolfier brothers and Jean-Pierre Blanchard to the likes of Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh, who built on those early achievements and carried human flight to new heights, in a sense. Every balloon that ascends into the sky today is a tribute to the brave adventurers of the past. Even in the world of scientific exploration, balloons have found their place in the modern world, while planes and rockets now carry instruments into the stratosphere and beyond. balloons remain a valuable tool for scientific study. High-altitude balloons are still used today to carry instruments for research on everything from atmospheric composition to the study of cosmic rays. The fact that something as old as the hot air balloon can still serve a purpose in the scientific community is a testament to the durability of this technology and the lasting impact of those early experiments. In the context of modern space exploration, balloons have even been used as a platform to test new equipment for missions to higher altitudes and outer space. These so-called stratospheric balloons can reach altitudes of up to 120,000 feet, well into the lower reaches of the Earth's stratosphere. While they don't venture into the vacuum of space, they provide a valuable testing ground for the technologies needed to explore higher altitudes, bridging the gap between earthly flight and the mysteries of space. Interestingly, this connection between early ballooning and space exploration was something that the first balloonists could hardly have imagined. They were driven by the desire to experience flight, but they had no idea that their early flights would pave the way for the rockets and spacecraft that would eventually carry astronauts into orbit. But in retrospect, it seems almost fitting. Just as the Montgolfier brothers sought to defy gravity and ascend into the unknown, the space pioneers who followed in their footsteps were doing the same. It's an enduring legacy, a chain of innovation that started with a humble hot air balloon and eventually led to the exploration of the cosmos. Looking at the landscape of flight today, it's clear that ballooning remains an integral part of that broader narrative. The innovations in aviation that have brought us commercial jets and interplanetary exploration all stem from those first. Fragile flights, the spirit of adventure, the curiosity that propelled the early balloonists to risk everything for the chance to soar, continues to live on in the technological marvels of modern flight. Whether it's the thrill of a hot air balloon ride, the scientific discoveries made using balloons, or the inspiration they provide to the astronauts of tomorrow, ballooning's legacy is undeniable. Yet, perhaps what's most striking about ballooning is how it captures something timeless in the human experience: the desire to be free, to fly, and to see the world from a perspective that is unique and inspiring. Modern aviation has transformed the world, making it smaller and more interconnected. We can now travel around the globe in hours rather than days or weeks. We can send probes into space to explore distant planets. But even with all these advancements, there's still something special about the simplicity of a balloon, about the way it rises into the sky on a warm breeze, carried by the air, with no engines, no fuel, and no destination other than the experience itself. It's a reminder that, sometimes, the most important journeys are not the fastest, or the farthest, or the most technologically advanced. Sometimes, the most meaningful experiences are the ones where we slow down, let go of control, and simply enjoy the ride. That is the spirit of ballooning, an adventure that is just as much about the journey as it is about the destination. So, next time you look up and see a balloon floating across the sky, remember that it's not just a piece of technology, it's a symbol of human ambition, curiosity, and the courage to face the unknown. It's a living testament to the dream of flight, a dream that continues to inspire, even as it has long since been realized. The idea of ballooning as an enduring symbol of human ambition and the exploration of the unknown remains as relevant today as it did centuries ago. Though the technology and applications have evolved, ballooning still carries with it that same spirit of discovery that fueled its pioneers. In many ways, it's hard to look at a hot air balloon drifting peacefully through the sky and not think back to those first, frail flights those brave souls who defied gravity with little more than a fabric bag and a flame. Ballooning, at its core, represents a deeper, more philosophical drive to explore the world and beyond. It reminds us of the human tendency to look up at the sky and wonder, what's out there? For all its potential in scientific research and space exploration, ballooning still has the power to evoke something much simpler and more profound, a sense of awe. There's something about watching a giant balloon inflate and rise, seemingly suspended in time. It's a quiet, meditative act. People gather, sometimes in the early hours of the morning, to witness this beautiful, almost magical moment. It's as if the world stands still for a moment, and everyone is connected to something greater than themselves. The possibility of flight, the hope of exploration, and the gentle thrill of human achievement. Today, ballooning is not just about cutting-edge scientific experiments or a fashionable spectacle. It has become a form of escape, a chance to detach from the chaos of modern life and experience something that feels timeless. There are few activities in our fast-paced world that allow us to slow down in such a dramatic way. Ballooning doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. Instead, it allows you to drift. It's one of the rare experiences that asks you to simply be present in the moment, to feel the wind against your face and look down on the world below, taking in the vastness of the landscape while surrendering yourself to the whims of the breeze. Perhaps that's why hot air ballooning continues to thrive as a form of leisurely recreation. Ballooning is the antithesis of modern air travel, where speed, efficiency, and technology reign supreme, unlike the sterile, predictable world of commercial flight. Ballooning offers a unique sense of unpredictability. The balloon's path is determined by the wind, and a good balloonist learns to trust in the air, to work with it rather than fight it. It's an intimate, almost poetic form of flight, a reminder that, no matter how far we've come, there's still something magical about allowing nature to guide us. The modern-day balloonist is, in many ways, an heir to the legacy of the pioneers who took to the skies in those early, uncharted days of ballooning. The risks are lessened now, and the technology is far more advanced. But the thrill of flying still exists. For the balloonist, it's not about conquering the sky or racing against the clock. It's about the quiet adventure of leaving the earth behind, if only for a short time. It's about the journey itself, about stepping into the air and experiencing a sense of freedom that few other forms of travel can provide. And in that sense, ballooning continues to teach us something profound about the human spirit. It's not just about mastering flight. It's about the willingness to embrace the unknown, to trust the air, to embrace the unpredictability, and to surrender to the adventure of it all. In a world where we are often so focused on control, efficiency, and precision, ballooning reminds us that there is still room for spontaneity, wonder, and a touch of the unknown. As we look ahead to the future of aviation and space exploration, ballooning's place in history is secure. Its influence can be seen in everything from the development of the first airplanes to the study of the upper atmosphere and the exploration of the cosmos. While balloons themselves may never be the primary means of transportation again, they have already done their part. They've proven that flight is possible, that humans can defy gravity, and that the desire to explore is universal. It's that foundational spirit of exploration that has carried humanity from the first balloon flights to the era of space travel. But even as we venture farther into space, ballooning continues to offer a grounded, serene reminder of what it means to explore the unknown. In fact, the future of space exploration is still closely tied to ballooning technology. High-altitude balloons are used to test equipment and gather data about the Earth's atmosphere. NASA, for example, regularly uses balloons to launch scientific experiments into the upper reaches of the atmosphere. These missions, though far more sophisticated than the early Montgolfier flights, are rooted in the same spirit of inquiry and adventure that led to the first recorded balloon ride. In this way, ballooning has never truly disappeared. It has simply evolved. The desire to fly, to rise above the Earth and see the world from a new perspective, is as strong today as it was in the 18th century. While we may have traded the precariousness of early balloon flights for the reliability of airplanes, and while space exploration has opened up new frontiers, the essence of ballooning remains with us. Whether we're floating in a hot air balloon, studying the atmosphere, or sending probes into space, the desire to reach higher, to explore the unknown, and to experience something beyond our everyday lives is timeless. As we move forward into the future, we can only imagine where the next great flight will take us. But no matter how advanced our technology becomes, ballooning will always be there, floating peacefully, suspended in time, reminding us of our roots, of our curiosity, and of the quiet adventure of flying. Even as the 20th century unfolded and airplanes became the dominant force in the skies, ballooning retained an enduring charm, an element of the past preserved in the face of rapid technological change. Balloonists, still pushing their craft further, continued to soar for reasons that were not purely scientific, nor purely for the thrill, but something more existential, an undeniable drive to experience the freedom of flight in its purest form. While planes zipped across the sky at breakneck speeds, ballooning remained a quiet testament to the beginnings of human flight, when gravity was something to be defied, and the sky, an unexplored frontier. In many ways, the slow, graceful ascent of a hot air balloon is the perfect metaphor for how we engage with progress. Where airplanes focus on speed, efficiency, and pushing the limits of distance and time, ballooning stands as a counterpoint. It invites people to take their time, to appreciate the journey itself rather than just the destination. It's a form of travel that isn't about reaching somewhere quickly, but about existing in the moment and embracing the freedom that comes from being suspended in midair. Take a hot air balloon ride today, and it's easy to see why the experience remains so captivating. For many, it's an opportunity to escape the pressures of modern life, to disconnect from technology and the constant rush of work, and instead, drift peacefully above the Earth, floating in a serene, timeless space. It's an opportunity to look at the world from a different perspective, to see the landscape below without the obstruction of roads or buildings, and to understand the beauty of nature as it unfolds beneath you. In a sense, the very act of ballooning today holds a mirror up to our fast-paced world. The world of airplanes, trains, and cars has brought us closer to each other. But it has also made travel feel almost mechanical, an exchange of time and money for distance. Ballooning offers something that feels profoundly human, a return to the natural rhythms of the earth and the wind, an embrace of the unpredictable forces of nature that modern technology often seeks to control. And yet, there's also something strikingly modern about the continued popularity of ballooning. In a world that has largely abandoned slower forms of transportation, ballooning has managed to carve out its own niche. Today's balloonists don't simply fly for the thrill. They do it for the love of the craft, the artistry of managing a flight, and the communal experience of being part of a ballooning event. Festivals like the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta draw hundreds of thousands of spectators every year, not just to watch the balloons rise into the air, but to celebrate the joy and beauty of human flight. At these festivals, balloonists from around the world gather with their colorful balloons, each one a testament to human creativity and the passion that still exists for flight. The balloons may be modern and technologically sophisticated, but the core spirit of ballooning remains the same. It's about more than simply getting from one place to another. It's about the journey itself, the shared experience of something truly special. When hundreds of balloons fill the sky in unison, there's a moment of awe, of collective wonder that feels universal. It's a moment where the limits of flight are forgotten, and all that remains is the beauty of the sky and the dream of flying. Ballooning festivals have taken on an almost festive quality, where the sheer spectacle of flight is a form of entertainment, but one that is slow, deliberate, and carefully choreographed. It's not a race to the finish line, but a celebration of the simplicity of flight. The sense of adventure remains, but it's paired with a newfound respect for the process, the craft, and the artistry of ballooning itself. The balloonists at these events aren't just thrill seekers, they're artists, they're storytellers, and they're keeping alive an age-old tradition of flight that connects us to the pioneers who first dared to rise above the earth. Of course, the public's relationship with ballooning isn't solely defined by festivals. There is also a strong community of individuals who, year-round, engage in hot air ballooning as a personal hobby or even as a form of sport. Ballooning enthusiasts invest time, effort, and passion into their craft, and for them, flying a hot air balloon is not just about the joy of flight, but about the craftsmanship and precision that goes into maintaining and flying these magnificent machines. Whether flying solo or with a crew, there is an undeniable sense of camaraderie among balloonists, many of whom share tips, stories, and experiences in a community built on a shared love for the skies. Even with its continued popularity, ballooning's importance lies not just in the joy it brings to those who participate, but in its enduring legacy as the precursor to modern aviation. Its story is intertwined with the story of flight itself. It was ballooning that demonstrated the very possibility of flight, and it was ballooning that helped lay the foundations for the work of pioneers like the Wright brothers, who would take to the skies a century later and revolutionize the way we travel. The ability to navigate the air and explore new frontiers, whether on Earth or beyond, owes much to those early adventurers who, with simple materials and simple tools, defied gravity. And yet, in a world where we've pushed the boundaries of flight further and further, from jet travel to space exploration, ballooning still offers something distinct. It offers a return to the roots of human curiosity. It reminds us of a time when flight wasn't taken for granted, when the skies were a mystery, and every journey was an exploration. Today, ballooning is as much about nostalgia as it is about a future that still holds room for dreams, discovery, and wonder. In this way, ballooning's continued existence, whether as a leisurely pastime, a competitive sport, or a tool for scientific research, serves as a gentle reminder of the pursuit of knowledge. Every balloon that rises into the sky represents the dream of flight, and the determination to keep that dream alive. The pioneers who first tested the winds centuries ago had no way of knowing where their journey would lead. But thanks to them, the sky is no longer a distant dream, but a part of our reality. And even today, we look up at the balloons floating above and are reminded that, sometimes, the most meaningful flights are the ones that allow us to slow down, look at the world with fresh eyes, and simply enjoy the ride. As we continue exploring the legacy of ballooning, we cannot overlook its significant contribution to the broader scientific and technological advances that followed. While ballooning may no longer be at the forefront of transportation or exploration, it has remained a key player in many fields of study, from atmospheric science to the military, and even in the ongoing quest for space exploration. One of the most significant areas where ballooning's impact is still felt today is in meteorology. The use of balloons to study weather patterns and gather data about the Earth's atmosphere has been an invaluable tool for scientists. Beginning as early as the 19th century, high-altitude balloons were used to gather data on temperature, pressure, and wind conditions at various layers of the atmosphere. This data was essential for the early development of weather forecasting. The role of balloons in meteorology only grew stronger in the 20th century. Scientists began launching weather balloons equipped with sophisticated instruments called radiosondes. These instruments measure atmospheric pressure, temperature, and humidity as they ascend into the atmosphere. Today, weather balloons remain one of the most reliable tools for gathering critical information about the Earth's weather systems, providing vital data for weather prediction and climate studies. Interestingly, ballooning has also contributed to our understanding of the upper atmosphere. Since the early days of flight, researchers have used balloons to send instruments into the stratosphere and beyond to gather data on cosmic rays, ozone levels, and other environmental factors that are crucial to our understanding of the Earth's atmosphere. These high-altitude research flights allow scientists to collect data from areas of the atmosphere that would otherwise be difficult, if not impossible, to reach by conventional means. The scientific contributions made possible by ballooning extend beyond just the weather and atmospheric research. In fact, balloons were also used in the early days of space exploration, before the development of rockets. Balloons were used to carry instruments into the upper reaches of the atmosphere to test equipment that would eventually be used for space missions. NASA, for instance, has used balloons extensively to test scientific instruments designed for space exploration. These test flights allowed for the evaluation of new technologies and helped scientists fine-tune equipment before sending it into space. While balloons are no longer used to carry humans into space, their role in the early days of space exploration cannot be overstated. Early balloon flights were the precursors to the rockets that would eventually carry humans to the moon and beyond. The data gathered by balloons in the mid-20th century contributed significantly to the understanding of the Earth's atmosphere and space conditions, providing a crucial foundation for the space missions that followed. Despite their invaluable contribution to science, balloons have also been used in military applications. As early as the Civil War, balloons were used for reconnaissance and intelligence-gathering purposes. In fact, the use of balloons in warfare was one of the driving forces behind early military aviation. Balloons allowed commanders to see the battlefield from a higher vantage point, giving them critical insights into enemy movements and troop placements. This form of aerial surveillance would eventually evolve into the more sophisticated technologies used in modern warfare. But it was the humble balloon that first demonstrated the potential of using flight for military advantage. Throughout the 20th century, military use of balloons continued, though their role in combat became more specialized. In World War II, for example, balloons were used for a variety of purposes, including carrying explosives to be dropped on enemy targets or serving as a platform for reconnaissance. They were also employed for defense purposes, such as creating artificial blimps to confuse enemy radar systems or used for training military pilots. Even though balloons were eventually replaced by more advanced aircraft, their early role in military reconnaissance demonstrated just how versatile they could be. Today, balloons still play a key role in space exploration, albeit in a very different capacity. In the early 21st century, high-altitude balloons have been used to launch experiments into the stratosphere to study space radiation, microgravity, and cosmic rays. NASA and other space agencies regularly use balloons to carry instruments high into the atmosphere, reaching altitudes where space-related data can be gathered without the need for a full-fledged rocket launch. In fact, the world of modern ballooning has also seen some incredible, high-profile feats of adventure. In 1987, a man named Bertrand Piccard made history by completing the first non-stop, round-the-world flight in a hot air balloon. His journey, which took 19 days, 21 hours, and 55 minutes, circled the globe in an attempt to push the limits of what was possible. This flight, made with the aid of a team and an advanced hot air balloon, highlighted the remarkable endurance of human ingenuity and the ongoing fascination with ballooning as both an adventure and a scientific experiment. Piccard's successful flight wasn't just about personal achievement. It was also a statement on the resilience of ballooning, an enduring symbol of exploration and adventure. The flight was an echo of the pioneering spirit that characterized the first balloonists of the 18th century, who sought to conquer the skies with nothing more than their imaginations and a desire to explore. In today's world, balloons still occupy a unique position in both the world of science and adventure. They serve as tools for atmospheric research, assist in the testing of space-related technologies, and provide people with a sense of wonder through festivals and leisurely flights. Despite the dominance of airplanes and rockets, balloons continue to remind us that there is something magical about flight. In a world that often feels increasingly mechanical and fast-paced, ballooning offers a welcome reprieve, a chance to slow down, embrace the elements, and experience flight in its most peaceful and gentle form. As we look forward, it's clear that ballooning will continue to serve as a bridge between past and future. Its contributions to the development of aviation and space exploration are deeply embedded in history, and its role as a beloved pastime continues to inspire new generations. The future of ballooning is certainly far less about pushing the boundaries of speed or distance, and much more about embracing the timeless experience of flight, an experience that allows us to marvel at the world from a different vantage point. And perhaps, remember why we first looked to the skies in the first place. As the years go by, ballooning has evolved from a groundbreaking, life-risking pursuit to a more relaxed, yet still thrilling, form of recreation. But despite its shift into the realm of leisure, there's something inherently profound about the experience of soaring high above the earth in a hot air balloon. In many ways, it has retained the wonder that first captivated humanity centuries ago. The moment when the balloon rises from the ground, the air cool against your skin, and the world below shrinks into a patchwork quilt of fields and towns. That feeling is timeless, and it connects us to an ancient dream of flight. Today, the experience of flying in a hot air balloon isn't just about traveling from one point to another. It's a journey of contemplation, of perspective. The soaring heights of the balloon lift us above the worries and busyness of our daily lives, offering a brief escape to a place where time slows down. There is no rush to get to a destination. There's only the gentle ascent and descent, directed by the wind and guided by the knowledge of the balloonist. It's a quiet adventure, one that invites introspection and peaceful reflection on the natural world. But it's not just the thrill seeker or the contemplative traveler who benefits from the experience of ballooning. Ballooning also offers a unique and effective way to view and study the landscape below. For photographers and filmmakers, capturing a scene from the heights of a hot air balloon provides unparalleled views of the world, untouched by the limitations of traditional aerial photography. The gentle, slow movement of the balloon means that images are captured with breathtaking clarity. There's no jarring motion or speed, just the serenity of floating, capturing the beauty of the world as it stretches beneath you. Some of the most iconic images of landscapes and nature have been taken from balloons, adding to the romantic allure of this form of flight. In recent years, ballooning has found its way into even more specialized domains. With advancements in technology, modern hot air balloons have become highly sophisticated, allowing for greater control and stability in the air. Electric fans and modern gas tanks have replaced the traditional methods of inflating and steering the balloon, making the ride smoother and more predictable. These advancements have made ballooning safer and more accessible than ever, allowing enthusiasts from around the world to join in the experience. Some modern balloons even feature built-in GPS systems and wireless communications, providing the pilot and passengers with real-time data about altitude, speed, and location. It's fascinating how far ballooning has come, yet the core of it remains rooted in that first dream of flight. While most of the world's population may never experience ballooning in a practical or adventurous way, it is safe to say that it has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. From the earliest days of the Montgolfier brothers' first flight to the grandeur of modern balloon festivals, ballooning has inspired countless people across the globe. It has captured the imagination of those with a passion for exploration and those simply looking for a gentle thrill. It has been a tool for scientific discovery, a form of military reconnaissance, and a means of personal achievement. And as we continue into the future, it will likely remain a beloved part of our cultural and scientific heritage. Ballooning has also inspired an entire subculture of enthusiasts who gather at ballooning events, where their shared love for the craft can be celebrated. One of the most well-known of these events is the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, held annually in New Mexico. The festival brings together balloonists from around the world, showcasing their balloons in a stunning array of shapes, colors, and sizes. It is one of the largest ballooning festivals in the world and serves as a vibrant testament to the global community of ballooning enthusiasts. The event is an awe-inspiring sight, hundreds of balloons gently rising in the sky at once, a dazzling display of human creativity, and a reminder that ballooning still holds a special place in the hearts of many. But even as ballooning continues to flourish as a recreational pursuit, it also serves as a historical marker, reminding us of our journey from the dream of flight to the reality of it. The Montgolfier brothers' first balloon flight was a bold step into the unknown. Their experiment opened the doors to scientific and technological advancements that would eventually lead to the development of airplanes, helicopters, and space exploration. Their pioneering efforts proved that humans could rise above the Earth and, in doing so, inspired generations of innovators to pursue flight in new and exciting ways. While the development of aviation technology may have outpaced the humble hot air balloon, there's a certain magic to flying in a balloon that airplanes and jets can't replicate. Balloons have a unique charm, a gentle rise, a connection to the natural world. and the calm, meditative aspect of drifting through the air. This aspect of ballooning, its peaceful nature and its ability to connect us to the world, remains timeless. And it's this timelessness that makes ballooning so special. It offers a momentary escape from the complexity of modern life. A brief period of serenity that allows us to reconnect with the beauty of the world around us. In the grand sweep of history, ballooning may not have been the most groundbreaking or world-changing innovation, but it's undeniable that it played an essential role in shaping our understanding of flight, our ability to explore the Earth, and our eventual reach for the stars. Without the early experiments and risks taken by balloonists, we may not have developed the technologies that would make space exploration possible. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of ballooning, though, is the way it reminds us of our insatiable curiosity. Humanity's drive to explore, to discover, and to dream is at the core of every adventure, from the early balloon flights to today's space missions. The pioneers of ballooning proved that even in the most uncertain of times, humans have the capacity to rise above it all, quite literally, as we continue to push the boundaries of what is possible. We should remember the simple joy of a balloon ride, a reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys are the ones that bring us back to what it means to truly explore, to look up and wonder, to soar with the wind. As the decades passed and aviation technology rapidly advanced, it would have been easy for ballooning to fade into the background. After all, airplanes had made the dream of flight accessible to the masses, while helicopters and drones offered quicker and more efficient alternatives for aerial transport and exploration. Yet, against all odds, ballooning has held on to its place in the skies. Not because it is the most efficient or practical form of flight, but because it offers something that no other aircraft can: peace, serenity, and a connection to the earth below. The quiet beauty of ballooning is what continues to captivate those who venture into the skies in one of these colorful, floating giants. There's no rush, no race to a destination. Ballooning is about slowing down, immersing yourself in the moment, and letting the wind carry you. You can hear the occasional whoosh of the flame as it heats the air, but otherwise, it's almost eerily quiet, with only the sound of the wind and the distant hum of the world far below. When you're suspended in the air, floating above the landscape, you feel like you're in a different world altogether. The sense of weightlessness, combined with the steady, slow movement, creates a rare kind of tranquility that other forms of flight simply can't replicate. In many ways, ballooning offers a reminder of a simpler time. Today's world moves at a frantic pace, where time is measured in seconds and distance is conquered in hours. Ballooning, in contrast, moves with the rhythms of nature. The balloonist isn't controlling the journey entirely, the wind does. It's not about mastering technology, but working with it, letting go of control and trusting in the air around you. It's an experience that offers a profound sense of freedom, but also a deep respect for the forces of nature that are always at play. This gentle flight has given rise to an entire community of ballooning enthusiasts who seek to share this peaceful, unique experience with others in many places around the world. Ballooning festivals have become an important part of local culture and a celebration of human flight in its purest form. Festivals like the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta have turned ballooning into a global event, where tens of thousands of spectators gather to witness a breathtaking display of balloons ascending into the sky. Watching a sea of colorful balloons drift through the air is like witnessing a dream in motion. As the balloons twist and turn, propelled by the whims of the wind. It's a moment of awe and wonder, a celebration not just of technology, but of the spirit of exploration. While the spectacle is mesmerizing, it also reminds us of the enduring connection between ballooning and the pioneering days of human flight. The origins of ballooning weren't about creating a form of transportation, but about reaching for something greater, something higher. From the very first flights by the Montgolfier brothers, ballooning symbolized the human desire to conquer the sky, to explore the unknown, and to defy gravity. Today, ballooning still carries that same sense of adventure, albeit in a more leisurely form. Interestingly, ballooning is not just for enthusiasts. It has also become a tool in modern science, and its contributions to our understanding of the atmosphere are still significant. High-altitude balloons continue to be used in meteorological research, carrying instruments to gather data about atmospheric pressure, temperature, and humidity. Ballooning is also a key part of studying cosmic rays, ozone depletion, and other phenomena that affect our planet. Despite its reputation as a leisurely pursuit, ballooning remains an essential method for exploring parts of the Earth's atmosphere that would otherwise be difficult to access. In fact, balloons are still being used to gather data on environmental factors, such as pollution levels, the effects of climate change, and how radiation levels affect the Earth's atmosphere. NASA, for instance, has used high-altitude balloons to carry scientific instruments far above the ground, where they can measure the Earth's upper atmosphere. These missions, which would otherwise require a space shuttle or rocket, offer a cost-effective way to gather data about the atmosphere and beyond. Balloons have also been a vital tool in space exploration. Long before rockets took humans to space, balloons were used to test instruments that would eventually be sent into the vastness of space. In the early days of NASA's space program, high-altitude balloons were used to test the first weather instruments, radiation detectors, and cameras that would later be used on satellites and spacecraft. Though space exploration has advanced dramatically, balloons continue to play an essential role in testing new technology and gathering data about Earth's atmosphere, bridging the gap between scientific discovery and the space age. Yet, even as ballooning continues to have practical applications in the realms of science and environmental research, its symbolic significance as a tool for exploration remains strong. Ballooning is the vehicle of the dreamers, the ones who dare to rise above the ground, to float above the clouds, and to challenge themselves to experience flight in a way that is entirely different from the speed and precision of modern airplanes. The idea that flight was once thought impossible, and that humans could only dream of the freedom of the skies, gives a sense of perspective on how far we have come. But ballooning remains a reminder of the adventure and spirit of discovery that started it all. The profound symbolism of ballooning extends beyond its practical uses. It serves as a reminder of the human ability to dream, to take risks, and to look beyond the horizon. As technology advances and the world of aviation continues to evolve, it's easy to forget how much of what we now take for granted was once impossible. Ballooning, in its quiet way, carries the torch of that initial dream to soar. It reminds us that even in the face of tremendous technological progress, there is something powerful about taking the time to slow down, to drift with the wind, and to experience the world from a different perspective. As we look forward to the future, we may see new forms of flight that are faster, more efficient, and more powerful than anything we can imagine today. But amidst the rise of new technologies, ballooning will remain a timeless pursuit, a peaceful, meditative adventure that will continue to inspire those who seek the beauty of flight in its most gentle and reflective form. It is a quiet reminder that the spirit of exploration is not just about reaching new heights, but about appreciating the journey itself, the freedom of the skies, and the wonder of the world below. As ballooning enters the 21st century, it stands as both a celebration of humanity's ingenuity and a gentle reminder of how far we've come in our quest for flight. But more than that, it represents a unique corner of the aviation world where technology and tradition blend seamlessly. In today's fast-paced, high-tech world, ballooning offers a rare glimpse into the past, a form of flight that has managed to endure, evolve, and retain its charm, even as more advanced modes of aviation continue to take center stage. For many, ballooning is a way to reconnect with nature and the simplicity of flight, as we become more disconnected from the physical world around us. Ballooning offers an opportunity to slow down and immerse ourselves in the environment. When you're drifting above the earth, with the wind as your only guide, you experience something that is difficult to replicate in the modern world. It's an experience that puts you in tune with the natural forces at play, weather, air currents, and the landscape below. The quiet nature of ballooning, where the world below seems far away, makes it a perfect opportunity for reflection and personal growth. In the modern world, we're often consumed by noise and distractions, be it the hum of traffic, the sound of conversations, or the constant barrage of notifications from our devices. But when you're in a hot air balloon, there is none of that. The peace and stillness that comes from floating high above the ground is a profound contrast to the cacophony of daily life. Many balloonists talk about how the experience allows them to connect with their surroundings in a way they never could before. Whether you're taking in the sweeping vistas of a desert, a mountain range, or the patchwork quilt of fields and towns, ballooning offers a sense of connection to the land in a deeply personal and spiritual way. It is this connection to the natural world that has contributed to the continued popularity of ballooning in the modern era. While it may no longer hold the same status as the cutting-edge technology of jet planes or rockets, it remains a cherished form of flight for those who appreciate its gentle pace, its quiet beauty, and its invitation to marvel at the world from above. Today, when people take to the skies in a hot air balloon, it's not just about the thrill of flight. It's about slowing down, enjoying the ride, and taking the time to appreciate the landscape below. But even as ballooning has found its place in modern culture as a leisurely pursuit, it has also remained an essential tool for exploration and scientific discovery. Whether it's helping researchers study the Earth's atmosphere, gathering data on weather patterns, or testing new space exploration technologies, the humble balloon continues to provide valuable insights into the world we live in. Its ability to reach altitudes that are too high for most aircraft, and its affordability compared to other forms of aerial research, make it a crucial part of the scientific community's toolkit. In fact, ballooning has found new life in the context of environmental and climate change research. High-altitude balloons are often used to carry instruments that measure the levels of pollutants, greenhouse gases, and other environmental factors that impact our planet. By collecting data from the stratosphere, scientists are able to better understand how changes in the atmosphere might be influencing the climate and weather systems. This research, while not as glamorous as space exploration, is vital to our understanding of Earth's delicate balance. And ballooning provides a relatively cost-effective way to gather critical data that would be difficult to collect using satellites or airplanes. Moreover, as we look to the future of human space exploration, Ballooning continues to serve as a bridge between the Earth and the stars. Some companies are working on using high-altitude balloons to bring passengers closer to the edge of space, offering a view of Earth from above the atmosphere. This space tourism, while still in its infancy, is a natural progression of the ballooning tradition, just as the first balloonists looked to the sky with wonder and curiosity. Today's adventurers are looking up with the same sense of awe, hoping to experience something few have ever seen. But beyond the scientific and commercial uses of ballooning, it remains a beloved pastime. Every year, thousands of people around the world gather to watch balloon festivals, marveling at the colors and shapes that fill the sky. Balloon festivals like the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta have become an iconic part of the cultural landscape, where people from all walks of life come together to celebrate human flight in its most joyous and colorful form. The festival's early morning launches, where hundreds of balloons take to the air at once, are a breathtaking sight for those lucky enough to experience it. It's a reminder of the magic that still exists in the world, magic that can be found not in the high-tech jets zooming overhead, but in the gentle ascent of a hot air balloon. Despite the changing landscape of aviation, ballooning continues to represent the essence of human exploration. It is a gentle reminder of the past, of the pioneers who first looked to the sky and dared to take flight. Ballooning, at its heart, is about much more than the act of flying. It's about the courage to pursue the impossible, the curiosity to explore the unknown, and the spirit of adventure that lies within us all. And as long as there are those who seek to take to the skies in search of new perspectives, ballooning will continue to inspire the dreamers and the adventurers of tomorrow. Looking to the future, we can only imagine where ballooning will take us. New technologies may emerge, and other forms of flight may capture the public's imagination. But the simple joy of drifting peacefully above the Earth, guided only by the wind, will always hold a special place in the hearts of those who understand its quiet power. Ballooning reminds us that even in an age of rapid technological advancements, there's still something to be said for taking our time, embracing the journey, and enjoying the beauty of the world from a perspective few others ever experience. As we draw closer to the end of our exploration into the world of ballooning, it's worth pausing to reflect on the legacy of these soaring giants. The first recorded balloon flight, when the Montgolfier brothers took that bold step into the sky, marked the beginning of a new era, a time when humanity dared to challenge the limits of gravity and venture into the skies. What started as an audacious experiment has become one of the most enduring and beloved traditions in aviation history. Ballooning has transcended the bounds of practical transportation or scientific research. It has evolved into a symbol of human curiosity, perseverance, and the sheer joy of flight. It's a journey not just through the skies, but through time itself, connecting us to our ancestors who looked up at the heavens and dreamed of the impossible. In today's fast-paced world, ballooning offers a rare escape, a reminder that the thrill of flight doesn't always have to be about speed or technology. Sometimes, it's about slowing down, being present, and letting the wind take you where it will. As we've seen, ballooning's role in the history of aviation cannot be overstated. It has been a critical stepping stone that paved the way for airplanes, space exploration, and modern atmospheric science, the pioneers of ballooning, such as the Montgolfier brothers, Jean-Pierre Blanchard, and Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier, were the true forerunners of modern aviation, Their innovations and daring feats provided the world with proof that flight was possible, sparking a revolution in technology that would ultimately lead to airplanes, rockets, and our journey into space. Yet, even as technology progressed and more sophisticated forms of flight were developed, ballooning retained its place in the hearts and minds of those who continued to seek the beauty and wonder of the sky. The quiet, gentle ascent of a hot air balloon provides an entirely different experience than a jet or rocket ever could. It's not about getting somewhere fast, but about appreciating the journey itself. The air around you, the sweeping landscape below, and the serenity that comes with floating in the sky create an experience that is truly unique. A journey that connects us not just to the earth beneath our feet, but to the heavens above. In modern times, ballooning remains a beloved pastime. Balloon festivals like the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta attract thousands of spectators every year. And balloonists from around the world continue to gather to celebrate this timeless form of flight. It has become a symbol of human achievement. A reminder that, despite all the technological advancements in the world, there is still room for wonder, joy, and exploration. And even as balloons are no longer the primary means of flight or transportation, they still serve as an important tool for scientific research, from studying the Earth's atmosphere to testing instruments for space exploration. Balloons continue to provide valuable insights into our world. High-altitude balloons are used to gather data on weather patterns, cosmic rays, and even the effects of climate change. Their contributions to our understanding of the planet, and even our ability to explore space, remain as relevant today as they were centuries ago. And perhaps most importantly, ballooning is a reminder of the spirit of adventure that lies within us all. It was never just about the technology, the ability to defy gravity, or the scientific advancements that came from those first flights. Ballooning is about the human drive to explore, to seek out the unknown, and to experience the world from a perspective few others get to see. It is a testament to the courage of those who risked everything in the pursuit of a dream that became a reality through curiosity, imagination, and sheer willpower. As we close tonight's journey, we can take comfort in the knowledge that ballooning, despite its evolution and its transition into a more leisurely pursuit, continues to be a symbol of human aspiration. The dream of flight, which once seemed impossible, has now become a part of our everyday reality. And while we may have moved on to faster, more efficient means of transportation, ballooning remains a celebration of the beauty of the sky, the power of nature, and the enduring spirit of adventure. So, as we look up at the next balloon drifting lazily across the horizon, let it remind us that the journey, whether it's a leap of technological innovation or a quiet, peaceful ride, is just as important as the destination. Ballooning tells us that the sky is not the limit. It's simply another place to explore, to learn, and to dream. Now, as you ease into rest, take a moment to reflect on the legacy of those early pioneers, those who dared to soar, those who risked it all in the name of discovery. Their legacy lives on in every balloon that rises into the sky, and in the spirit of every adventurer who dares to dream sweet dreams as you float peacefully in your own sky of possibility.